Have you heard from Sharon, AC?
I'm here.
Sharon's here.
I didn't see
I'm
him.
here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. We're good. That's where you're at.
How could you?
Okay.
How could you not see me?
I mean, you're first one up on my screen, so I should have seen you. Yeah.
That's right.
All right, we're good to go.
Okay, let's call this meeting of Timberville Town Council to order on, I don't even know the day, see?
November 12th.
November 12th. Okay, let's start. We got a lot to cover today. So AC will start with the authority to conduct electronic meeting.
All right, so we're going to read this again tonight. Tonight's meeting is being conducted electronically to address the central business of the town of Timberville. Authority to conduct the meeting in this manner is provided through the declaration of local emergency, resolution authorizing electronic public meetings, and emergency ordinance to address continuity of operations, all of which were adopted at a special meeting of the Timberville Town Council on May 26, 2020. These orders are in effect for 6 months from the date of adoption, which means November 26 is when they would expire. Members of the Timberville Town Council and town staff are participating in tonight's meeting using the Zoom conferencing platform. Meeting is being streamed for public viewing on the town of Timberville's YouTube channel. Required notifications of this meeting were sent by email and through postings on the town's social media outlets. We do have some public hearings tonight, so we will have the phones open when those public hearings begin for anyone who wants to call in to make a comment during the public hearing. And any votes taken tonight will be conducted by roll call and will be recorded in the minutes. And I'll throw the agenda up here real quick. We can look at, so we've everybody can kind of see what the business is that's going to be we're going through tonight.
Okay, thank you, AC. Okay, we'll move down the agenda. Second item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Everyone received a copy of those in their email from AC a couple days ago. Our last meeting was relatively quick, so I hope everyone's had a chance to review the minutes. And if there's no questions or anything, amendments or changes need to be made, I'll need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Any further discussion? Excuse me. Okay, Carl?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes.
Ned?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yeah.
And Juanita? I could read your lips, Juanita. Yes. Okay, you're still muted. Okay, we are good there. And we'll move down to our treasury report. Everyone received a copy from Melinda of her weekly treasurer's report and a copy of the park expenditures thus far. Any questions on the treasurer's report or the park expenditures? I do know we have some bills coming for the finishing up of the paving, a few finishing up the memorial and items like that. But we're moving along pretty good on the park too. Any questions for Melinda as far as any of the reports? Okay, seeing none of those, we'll move down to bills for payment. Everybody received a copy of their bills in that same packet we discussed. Anyone have any questions for AC, the chief, or Melinda about any items on the packet? And if there's no questions, I need a motion.
I make a motion, we pay the bill.
Thank you, Sharon. Do I have a second? Natalie, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote. Carl?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Natalie? Ned?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yeah.
And Juanita. Okay. Thank you all. So that takes care of bills for payment. Now, AC, I guess.
Hey, Don, let's make a note that Natalie was a yay on the paying the bills. Since her microphone's off, it won't necessarily get picked up on the recording.
And I saw Juanita's was a yay also.
Okay.
So both of them were yays. Okay, we're good. Now AC, next one on the agenda is authority to conduct the meetings electronically. Everyone should have received their note. I don't know if it came out today or yesterday from AC, from Quentin to AC to us, where basically you'd ask to do an amendment. And you want to go over that, AC, real quick, or Quentin, whoever wants to do that?
I'll let Quentin take care of that.
Okay.
Sure. When we passed the ordinance in May, it only covers 6 months based on Virginia statutes. So we need to extend it. What this does is we've already passed a resolution to adopt this ordinance. All we're doing is making an amendment to an existing ordinance. So it'll be a roll call vote to approve the amendments. There are 2 amendments. The last whereas paragraph on page 3, Council adopted a version of this ordinance on May 26, 2020, and seeks to hereby amend this ordinance to extend the effective date for an additional 6 months. And then the final paragraph on the second to last paragraph on page 5, further ordained that the provisions of this ordinance shall expire unless otherwise extended by council upon declaration by the governor of Virginia that the emergency in the Commonwealth is ended, or May 26, 2021, whichever is earlier. So that'll get us to next May, even if we adopt it tonight, because it'll extend automatically from the first date. We adopted 2 other resolutions. One was adopting the emergency declaration. There's no time frame associated with that emergency declaration, so it can be rescinded at any time, which will probably be in tandem with a declaration from the governor, but we don't need to do anything with that. There was another ordinance that we did related to the authority to conduct electronic meetings, and that doesn't have any time frame. The time frame for electronic meetings is directly tied to this emergency ordinance. So this is the only thing we need to do to keep doing what we're doing.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Quentin as far as the extension or the amendment to the emergency ordinance? Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Carl.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Natalie.
Yes.
Ned. I didn't hear you, Ned.
Yes.
Okay, excuse me. Sharon
Yeah,
and Juanita. Okay, that's a yes, Juanita. Okay, thank you all for that. We still are a little bit early before we can move into the different public hearings. AC, you got something you could keep us busy for 2 minutes? I don't know if you've heard the official results on the elections. Maybe you could talk about that.
Sure, we did receive the official results from the voter registrar from Rockingham County today. It just took a little while for them to count all the votes, get everything confirmed and certified. But it looks like Carl, well, obviously, Mr. Mayor, you've been reelected. You were running unopposed, and so you were reelected. And then Carl, the incumbent council member who was the only one whose name was on the ballot for the 3 seats, the 3 council seats that were up, Carl was reelected. And then we had a number of individuals running write-in campaigns. And so the 2 candidates that on those write-in campaigns that received the votes, I believe Clarence Fox received the next highest number of votes behind Carl, and then Debbie Jessup received the next highest number of votes in that order. So to fill the council positions, it will be Carl Turner, Clarence Fox, and Debbie Jessup. So.
Okay. Congratulations to all. Congratulations. What else you got, AC? What time is it?
I'll be getting with those individuals at some point with the COVID restrictions and our COVID procedures. I'm going to try to come up with some kind of maybe video tour of the town to familiarize the new council members with the town's facilities, town-owned properties that I would normally take them around in person to show. And so I'm going to try to put together a little video to get them familiarized with that. And what I'll do is I'll send it out to the entire council so that the entire council can get refreshed.
And do they have to be sworn in? I don't remember prior.
Yeah, we'll get them sworn in by the clerk of the court. We'll get something arranged where they can be sworn in. And then we'll also have to address, council did their COIA training last year. That's a Conflict of Interest Act training. It was required. This year is the FOIA training, which is the Freedom of Information Act training. So there's a module, and I'll be sending that out to the town council on with an email link that you can go through and do that training. The newly elected or new members of council, which would be Clarence and Debbie, they won't have to do their training. They have, I believe it's 2 months after they take office to do their training.
Okay.
So, but the rest of council is supposed to have it done before the end of this calendar year. But so I'll get that link out either tomorrow or Monday, and so that council members can go ahead and start working on it. It's about a 45-minute video. And Melinda, you can tell me, I know you went through it to see if you could do the, we're going to try to go through.
I couldn't get it to go through. It kept getting stuck at certain places.
Okay.
I had some issues with it.
Okay. Well, we'll get the link out and hopefully a link that works. I know that we've heard from some other localities around the Commonwealth that they were having issues with trying to get their members to watch it and then print off a certificate at the end that we can keep on file to show that it was completed. So.
Okay. And it is now 7:12, so we can move into the public hearing part of our agenda. The first one we have is several new police ordinances for public hearing. Chief, are you going to handle this, or is Mr. Quentin going to handle it for us?
Quentin can, I guess, probably would be beneficial for him to explain what we have to do to adopt these, and as far as the resolution and the ordinance, and then I'll discuss the two if that's okay with Quentin.
Sure. So,
hey, Quentin, before you start there, let me throw out a few bits of information here. Once Don opens it up for public comment, we are on a little bit of a delay, probably a 15-second delay between the live broadcast or between what we say and what goes live on YouTube. So we'll have a little bit of a silent period at some point where we wait for it to catch up and give everyone anybody that wants to call in a chance to do so. So here's the phone number. I believe hopefully everybody can see this. This is the phone number to call in on if you want to make comment. Cecilia will be handling the phone calls, any phone calls that come in. And if anybody wants to call in and comment, then this is the number to do so. When you call and Cecilia answers the phone, state your name and your address, and we'll get it patched through somehow, whether it's on a speakerphone trying to get across here, or whether Cecilia just has to convey the question to the council and the information on the call. Okay.
sure. So I'll let the chief go into the details of the ordinance. It's just like any other ordinance when we go to adopt them. They were sent out in advance. Everyone's got a chance to look at them. We'll pass the resolution, which will then make the ordinance effective. These were two that came up, and we wanted to make sure that everyone saw them since they relate to public safety and that type of thing. So yeah, no specific details from me other than what we normally do to adopt an ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions if someone has a question. Other than that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Thanks, Quentin. So the police department tries to be proactive in the sense of when we become aware of a problem, we try to find a way to resolve it. So old school police work, 20, 30, 50 years ago, you just responded to calls. kind of like a firefighter. You show up, put the fire out, and you move on. But there's a lot more demand from communities on what police departments should do, and we would like to be able to have tools to make lasting, effective care of problems rather than just answering a call and hoping we don't have to come back. There's usually a root problem that we'd like to be able to address. So as most often change comes from a specific incident. So there are calls or locations that we were dealing with that caused me to go out and look for ordinances to help us be able to resolve them in the future. Both those incidents have since been resolved using other means, but I brought these ordinances to the council hoping that they would be a tool that we would be able to use if we were to have to deal with similar situations. I'll talk about the first one as being 2-3.44 first, and I'll go ahead and read that. Designation of police to enforce trespass violations. So the ordinance reads that any owner, leasee, custodian, or person lawfully in charge of any real property may, in writing on a form prescribed by the chief of police, designate the town of Timberville Police Department as a, quote, a person lawfully in charge of the property, unquote, for the purpose of forbidding another to remain upon the lands, buildings, or premises as specified in the designation. The designation shall be on file with the town of Timberville Police Department. So we've had issues where there's suspicious activity at a residential area and there was an adjacent business that was closed in the evening and nighttime hours. And we were getting complaints from neighbors and also from the business about people using this parking lot, suspicious activity. Unfortunately, without the person legally in charge of that property to be there to tell them to leave, or even if it's posted, or to pursue criminal charges against them, we didn't really have anything that we could do other than, point out the fact there's no trespassing signs and ask them to move along. So what this ordinance would allow is we have a form, this ordinance and the form were essentially copied from Harrisonburg City and Harrisburg Police Department. This would allow us to have a business owner say, AAA Towing calls us and says, hey, we feel like there are people hanging out on the property after hours when we don't have anybody here. Can you all enforce the no trespassing signs, which would give us the authority to tell people to leave and to charge them with trespassing if the officer felt that was appropriate. So it's a way for us to work basically as a surrogate for a property owner, would most likely be used in either an apartment complex or commercial businesses where I would see it being applied. It would be something that we could offer as a tool to the person who's legally in charge of it. If they felt like they had a problem, they were not able to physically be there to address.
Okay. Any questions for the chief on the first ordinance? I think we'll go over both, chief, and then we'll open it up to public comment. But does council have any questions on the first ordinance for the chief? Okay, chief, why don't you go over the second one, please?
Yes, sir. The second one is going to be 5-9.25, which as written reads sleeping in automobiles. I'll go ahead and read it and then review the background on it. But it reads currently, it shall be unlawful and a class 4 misdemeanor for any person to use an automobile for sleeping quarters in lieu of a hotel, tourist cabin, boarding house, rooming house, or other similar accommodations within the city. First, I'll note that would like to make 2 changes. We discussed this with Quentin and with Austin, and that is to change automobiles to motor vehicles. The reason for that is in the Code of Virginia, traffic law is written under 46.2, and the definitions are under 46.2-100. In there, it refers to motor vehicles, not automobiles. So in order to have it consistent with what the state code says in reference to cars, essentially, I'd like to see that changed. And when this was sent up, missed the fact that the ordinance that I copied was from a city. And so the original version said within the city. It should be amended to say within the town. None of those change anything about the meaning or intent of the ordinance. Clarification. So this issue, the reason that I'm requesting this ordinance is to address issues with people habitually sleeping in a motor vehicle in the town, most specifically on roadways, although it could be a problem in other common areas. This is not, my intention is not for this to be used for someone who is sleeping in their car for the heat because the heat's not working in their house. That is not the intention. The intention is to deal with people who, and we have had this happen, who are actually living in an automobile on the street. It caused quite a lot of distraction from people driving on the roadway, where people were calling in complaints. Had concerns from neighbors about where was this person using the bathroom, if they were staying in this car, seemed to be there all the time. There were other concerns. So it was definitely causing enough of an impact on the perceived quality of life by the people living on that street that we were getting regular calls, and also even from passers. It was causing a, because of those reasons, I'm asking that this be passed as an ordinance. Again, like the first one, it's a tool to be used probably on rare occasions. We may never need it, but in that particular situation, unfortunately, it was the situation was resolved by time, not by anything that we were.
Okay, Chief. Anybody have any questions for the chief as far as 5-9.25?
One question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Bob.
So the libertarian side of me would say, well, should we exclude private property? It seems a bit broad, and I understand the intent, and I'm certainly wanting to give that permission to the police, but again, I think the language is a bit broad. And
yes, absolutely. And you and I have talked, in side conversations. I think you and I tend to agree in a lot of ways on that kind of general notion of government only being involved as much as they need to be. I guess I would prefer to leave it as written, trusting that myself as the chief and the following chief would have enough sense and discretion to use this ordinance appropriately. If you have an issue where someone is doing this and it's on private property and it's creating a nuisance, again, an issue of where they're using the bathroom, so on and so forth, I think you could still end up with the same issues. Again, it's a council's decision on these things, but in order to give the police officer or the police department the most tools, I would prefer that it be seen this way and trust in the department and the officer's discretion to use it appropriately.
Are there any other questions? Or Bob, do you have any other questions after that?
I'm satisfied. Again, the private property is. I see the chief's point, and I agree with him. But again, I think the language is a bit broad. I don't want to go overboard either, so I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to take into consideration on the private property, it could be in a subdivision where the houses are 15 feet apart. So, I'm like the chief. I like to see it stand the way it's written.
Okay. And like we said, we hired the chief. We'll trust his decision making on when to apply and when not to apply. Okay, I guess AC, we need to open it up for public comment, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I guess we'll sit here for 30 seconds or so, a minute or so, and see if someone does call in.
That sounds like a good plan. We're about 15 seconds behind on the broadcast, so that should give everybody plenty of time. Anybody that wants to call in and make comment, to be able to do so. Again, the number's on there screen.
It's just not, doesn't flow easily when you have to do it this way, for sure. But we'll wait a little bit. Tell me when time's up, AC, and we'll have a motion and move on from this one.
All right, Don, I'm not seeing any phone calls coming in.
Okay.
And that number's been up on the screen for
Well, since
25 or 30 seconds. So
we started on it too, so they could call it. They could always call in early and wait on hold while we're
right, exactly.
Okay, so since it seems like there was not a lot of besides the question that Bob had, it seems like we could possibly should we approve together or separately, AC? What do you think would be best?
I'll defer to Quentin on that.
Let's do them separately.
Separately, okay.
Makes it easy on Melinda.
Awesome. Awesome. So we'll start with the first one. This is 2-3.44 designation of police to enforce trespass violations. We need a motion to approve that ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Carl. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Okay, any further discussion? Then I'll move down for a roll call. Carl?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, was there a further discussion? Okay. Carl?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes.
Ned?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yeah.
And Juanita? Okay, yes from Juanita. Okay, so that one is approved. I'll move that one out of the way. The next one we have is 5-9.25, sleeping in automobiles resolution and ordinance adoption. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion also.
Thank you, Carl. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we do a roll call vote again. Carl?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Okay, Natalie?
Yes.
Ned?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yeah.
And Juanita? Yes from Juanita. Okay. So that takes care of those two, AC. The next one on the agenda at 7:15, I'm sure we're past that. Water tank public hearing. You wanted, you got this one, right, AC?
Yep, this one's on me. So the town was approached by an individual who was curious about the old water tank property off of Town Reservoir Lane, which go up Route 42 North and up behind the Living Waters development. It's just down the hill from where our new water tank is. And we had tried to sell that tank at one time. It had been sold to an individual who was trying to repurpose the tank. He worked for a company that dealt with tanks and the like. And he thought he might be able to repurpose it, get somebody to come in and remove it for another use, say a farm use. And he never had any success with that. So he gave up on it and turned it back over to the town. And so we had an individual approach the town who owns a piece of property out there that the old tank blocks the view of the mountain from the residents right across the Town Reservoir Lane from it. So we wanted to get rid of the tank. We really have no purpose for the property that we can think of. I've talked to Chris about it, and he has no issue with us disposing of that property. So when I talked to Quentin and Mark about this, they said we needed to have a public hearing to dispose of the property. And so that's what this public hearing is for, is to determine if the council wants to dispose of the property. And I believe that's really what we need to determine tonight. And then if council is inclined to dispose of it and votes to do so, then we will have to, we'll come up with some kind of method of disposal to determine how we're going to get rid of the property. It's right at a third of an acre where that tank sits. We do have a water line that goes across that extends on up to the new tank. There's an easement. If we would get rid of the property, we'll definitely make sure we get an easement for the water line that goes across it already. And the one individual who expressed interest in it said that that would be no issue. But that person was looking to, was interested in the property so that they could take the tank down and improve the view from the residents on Town Reservoir Lane.
Okay. Now, AC, I guess, do you have some sort of recommendation? I mean, I know we're not really moving on right now. We're just seeing if we do want to dispose of it in this way. Do you have a recommendation of any kind?
Well, it had been brought up before about what the value of the land was. And that's why I say we'll get into the method of disposal if council decides that they want to dispose of it. But we don't have a good grasp on what the cost of tank removal would be. We knew what it would be if we were going to try to relocate it. The engineer has that information. Just to take it down, there's really scrap metal, as we know, the price for scrap metal has been low for some time now. And just to get rid of it, my thought would be to, and Quentin, I haven't talked to you or Mark about this as far as the wording would go, but if we could write up a contract to exchange the property for the homeowner or the new property owner, whoever it would be, taking the tank down. And I don't know if you can write, if that's something like that could be written up in a contract where if it's not taken down within a certain time frame, that the property would revert back to the town. The mayor and I had kind of talked about this a little bit and said, thinking through it, if we require the individual who is going to get the land, whoever it might be, to take it down before they get the property, then the liability would probably lie on the town if something were to happen, unless they would produce, unless they had
They're not
contractor or something to come in and take care of it. But if we could do it some way where they get the property and take the tank down, the liability would be on them. So not asking for any opinion really, Quentin, but since I haven't had a chance to talk to you about that yet, but that was kind of the thought that was running through my head and a little bit of what Don and I had discussed at one point. But really the thing tonight is, does the council want to dispose of the property? And if so, then we can move forward with figuring out how we're going to do that.
Yeah, I think because it's physical land in addition to the water tank, we have to have the public hearing if we're disposing of any real property. And so that it's kind of a hearing to say that, yes, we want to go through with it. Then we'll need to have a contract, and we'll be back here where we'll need to discuss, whether we're willing to authorize someone from the town, AC, to sign the contract and move forward with the closing. It's just right now, before we did anything related to the property, we need to know the will of the council before we even get into the nits and gnats of the contract.
Currently, it's serving no purpose for the town, and it can be considered an eyesore for the neighbors. I'm imagining just a vacant tank. Council, what is your all's opinion on it?
We have the public hearing first to hear what the citizens have to say.
We'll have to have one prior to getting rid of it because we're disposing of property. But
and that's what we're doing tonight. Tonight is for the council, the public hearing for the council to determine if they want to dispose of it. So I think Ned, what you're asking is what we can do is we can go through, if council has any questions on this right now, as soon as council's questions are done, then the mayor can open it up for public comment, and then we can get public comment from that point.
One question, is there currently an easement for the water line to the town?
Not across that particular piece of property, because since the
And I
town
guess it's
owned it, there
unnecessary
wasn't.
since we own it, but
Right,
that
exactly.
would be one of the things that would have to be done, assuming that, prior to selling.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the individuals that I talked to that was interested in the property indicated that an easement would be no issue whatsoever for them.
What is the zoning of that property now, AC?
Let's see here.
And it is within the town limits?
It is within the town limits.
Okay.
Okay, I'll have to, Bob, I can't get that information right now. I'm thinking it's R2, I believe. Unless I can pull it up here, let's see, a different way.
So I guess the question tonight, except for we're gonna hear some public comment, is do we want AC and Quentin to continue on to dispose of the property, and then we can have a public comment to make the final decision on disposal of property, I guess.
I have no issue with proceeding.
Okay.
Yeah, the statute itself says that no such land shall be disposed of until the governing body has held a public hearing concerning such proposed disposal. So that's really the purpose of tonight, is we can't even really move forward with the process of disposing until we get a vote from the council. Yes, move ahead, or no. And the whole purpose of the public hearing is so we get input from the citizens. So from a legal point of view, we're at a standstill.
Right, Bob, I did find the zoning I did find a different way to get to the zoning map. It indicates on the zoning map that the property is zoned R5 conditional, which is what the entire Living Waters development or the Summit development, whatever you want to call it, is out there, is R5 conditional.
So I think some consideration should be given into these possibly rezoning that if it's the will of the council to dispose of it. R5 just seems for a third of an acre, just not practical.
What is the house, the owner that it's going to, what is his land zoned?
The one who is interested in it, who's indicated an interest in it, is actually out of town.
Oh.
Because his property is, his other property is on the other side of Town Reservoir Lane. So Town Reservoir Lane is the boundary of the town. The corporate limits of the town follows Town Reservoir Lane.
Yeah, I thought it'd be easy just making it the same as his, but he's
Right.
at the town. Okay.
So, yeah. Now there is another property up there that close to it that is zoned R1. It's not quite adjacent to it, but it's very close to it. That would be the closest other zoning designation besides the R5.
Okay.
So if we're open for hearing public comment, are we even able tonight to vote to dispose of the property?
Yes.
And then let the process of disposing begin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion before we open it up to public comment? Okay, see, go ahead and open up for public comment. I guess put the number up. And then we'll wait, wait a little while, see if Cecilia gets any calls.
All right, Mr. Mayor, nothing's come through. No phone calls have come through, and it's been displayed for over half a minute now. So
Okay, then we'll end public comment. Council, as Quentin has pointed out, this is just to decide if we do want to dispose of the property. The details will have to be worked out between Austin and Quentin. And then I guess, like Quentin said, we'll have to have another public comment to actually go over the details of. Is that correct, Quentin?
Probably. I got to look at the statutes to see. Right
Okay.
now, the one I'm looking at says we just have to have the public hearing concerning the disposal of the property. But I
Okay.
think there's another one related to the contract.
Okay, awesome. Okay, we'll need a motion one way or the other, and then we'll see how it goes.
I'll make a motion, we approve disposal of the property in question.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ned. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll go around the table. Carl,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
okay, Natalie,
Yes.
Ned,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yeah.
and Juanita. Okay, Juanita's yes. Okay. And that one is done. AC, now we'll move down to the longer one. I know I've had quite a few discussions with AC about clarifying things on the ordinance changes. First of all, I want to thank Cecilia, because she went through and took our old book and typed all this back into the system. And it took her many, many days, and she combined the ones that were stuffed in there and tacked in there and stapled in there and made the corrections and tried to compile everything. Thank AC for going through and trying to get everything gathered up over the years and put into books, and Quentin in his office for fixing all the stuff they could fix. So the neat thing about today is, for the first time, all our ordinance, I guess it's officially ordinance, correct, AC? Official
Yes.
term. All the ordinance books will be electronically in the system, and changes will be very easy. You can't lose something. You can't misplace something. It's taken care, it's voted on, it's put in, and it's there for all to see. So I don't know how long it took Cecilia to type it, but that is a lot of typing, because it's a lot of reading. So thank you, Cecilia, for doing that. And whoever else I missed, thank you. It's a big team effort, except, well, I guess team effort, because we got to read it all too. So it's a big team effort.
And I want to shout out to AC and Cecilia, because our office started on it, and AC started to say, I think Cecilia can type all this up. We don't need you all to incur all those legal fees typing all this up. So it saved me a lot of time and you all a lot of money. So good job, AC.
There you go. There you go. All that is good. All that is good. Okay. I'm trying to think the best way to go. I got to pull it up on your phone, AC, since it's such a long item to go through. I know you sent out your index, and I know there's one item that is purple that you need some clarification on. I guess we can just start as a council in each title, see if anyone has any questions or clarifications, and then we'll go each title by title, I guess. And we can clarify any questions, and then I think that's the best way to do it. It's so large, and it's doing it on this over the line makes it a little more difficult. So let's start with Title 1, and we'll see if anyone has any questions on, it's 32 pages. You know, basically got rid of some articles, changed some articles, that sort of thing. Is there any questions on Title 1 that the council has? And if so, let AC know which one it is. Okay, no questions on Title 1. AC, let's move to Title 2 then. No, Title 3.
Title 3, right? We'll make a note there that Title 2 and Title 5, we didn't try to go through those. Those are deal more with the police department and enforcement actions on their behalf. I believe correct me if I'm wrong, Title 5 is the motor vehicle code. Is that right, Quinn? Council probably knows this too, because we have to update and adopt that every year so that the town code is references the right state code, and so that's updated each year, or the council votes to update that each year or approve it each year. So we didn't actually do Title II and Title V. That's going to be a huge piece of work if we, but kind of went through it real quick and didn't. You'd have to sit down and compare each section with each Virginia code section, and we will do that at some point. Cecilia's got the everything in electronically now, so it makes it a little bit easier. We wouldn't have to worry about going through that portion of it. So that's why we're going Title I, Title III, Title IV, and Title VI. So we won't be addressing Title II and Title V.
Okay. Well, we're on Title III now. You want to pull that up, AC?
Okay.
And I thought it was, you can tell some of the stuff is old because that article for Sunday sale of beer and wine was still in there. So we've changed some things that just have not been needed for a while. So anyone have any questions on Title III, which is 38 pages? AC, is this the one that had purple in, or is that further down than the other?
I believe that's in Title IV, I believe, which is, let's see here.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of changes. It's just small corrections.
Yeah, it's in that purple. The one in question was in Title IV because that has to do with the with licenses.
Yeah. This one here is just changing some titles and deleting a couple things like the beer and wine that we discussed.
Right.
Any questions on Title III? Okay, we'll move to Title IV. This one here is 93 pages, so there was a lot of reading there also. We put in clarifications about taxing and things like that. I think that's the big one on this one, I think, AC.
Let me find,
now there was one question I had, AC, about the March 31st deadline on one, and the other one should be changed to the end of the month.
right, so that one is that is the license fee, which is like the vehicle license fee. And so that one needs to be changed to reflect a due date of December 31st because it's shown on the tax bills, on the personal property tax bills.
I don't remember which line that was.
I'll get to that one. Let me find the one with, like I said, there's a lot of pages on this one.
Most of this stuff was grammatical.
There we go. So here's
Okay.
here is the itinerant merchants and peddlers, and the old book had it listed at $500 next to the title, and then $50 in the body of the text. So I just need to hear from council. I think the practice has been to charge $50.
I mean, currently, like when the people set up in the property across from beside the Advance that they set up, they come in and buy a license of $50, correct?
That's correct.
So that's what you've been doing. If someone shows up for whatever, a weekend or whatever, to sell merchandise. The 500 seems, unless you're trying to stop something.
Mr. Mayor, there's a difference between setting up as a business license and then, as this says, carrying from place to place or door to door.
Okay. I see what you're saying, Ned. Thanks for that clarification.
And I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, but, and the chief had a problem a while back with someone selling frozen meat door to door.
Yeah, that's correct, Ned. We actually, and I don't remember what the section is, but there is an ordinance that now makes door-to-door peddling not permitted in town, with very few exceptions, including nonprofit organizations and people who are there by appointment, such as Schwann's, but just door-to-door selling vacuum cleaners, dishwashing fluid, and frozen meat, the big stuff we see, is now prohibited. So I'm not sure. The second one appears to be setting up a temporary or transient business, like maybe a flea market kind of thing. But the first one, carrying from place to place, looks like it's moot based on that other ordinance being in place.
So does that mean you're saying basically the paragraph, any person who shall carry, like Ned has talked about, place to place, is not allowed anyway, so it's no longer needed in this ordinance then?
Yes, sir, that's correct. It looks like the other one still applies because it talks about a temporary or transient business as opposed to door-to-door. The door-to-door peddling in the first paragraph can be struck.
Okay. Everybody good with that? What the chief's saying?
Temporary or transient, where would a food truck fall? So I know there are times when there's a food truck that may set in town and sell, and you may not see it again for a number of weeks or months, and they come back. Are they? Is this per occurrence, or how long is this good for? If they were to come in and purchase the $50 license?
I think what the town has done is if they come in and buy a $50 license, as if they're now a business in town, correct, AC? Is that the way it's looked at?
Right, the $50 is the minimum business license fee.
So someone, say the food truck, could set up every weekend, theoretically, for $50.
Right. Well, unless they made the $50 is the minimum. So if they would get over a certain amount of sales within the town, then their license would go up.
Just like any other business, I guess.
Right, exactly.
But we have people pay in advance for their expected gross receipts, do we not?
That's how it's done for the first year, right?
Yes.
And then subsequent years are based on the previous year's gross receipts. And the treasurer has the authority to call on those businesses and request their tax returns to verify the amounts that they're sending us on their forms. And we have exercised that right in the past.
Anyone, any further questions on 4-1.38? I think we're still good with getting rid of that first paragraph, AC. And I guess that automatically makes it the $50 if you even need that, for instance, since it says it beside the paragraph below already.
Those other council would like to do is the change that $500 to $50 in the title of that section.
Does it even need to be noted, since it's going to be noted in one paragraph left?
So you're saying just strike the $500 out of the title?
Right, and then below it, it says any person engages in or does a transaction in temporary transit business, blah, 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 the tax shall be $50.
Okay.
And you all would continue to treat it like you always have. It's a business end. Okay. Any other questions on section 4? We're on page like 43 right now.
All right. So the other one was 4-6.4. And this is the license fee.
Correct.
Is for motor vehicle. And so you can see it says the license fee shall be paid no later than February 28th. That was the old deadline for personal property taxes. So that needs to be changed to no later than December 31st to coincide with when the personal property taxes are now due, which that change was made, is it last year, maybe year before?
Correct.
That action was taken.
So that would have to be changed. That date would need to change. You've got that noted, and Cecilia, I'm sure, has got it noted by now. And wasn't there one other one we saw, AC, where the dollar, it said, it didn't say the dollar amount. It said the dollar amount, and it didn't print the dollar amount?
Right, and we can go through what I found in the Code of Virginia is if there's something that's just a grammatical error, we can go through and change those, correct those.
Okay.
And so we weren't suggesting to change the dollar amount that was stated. It was just we would be adding the numerical indicator alongside of the way it was spelled out in Word.
Correct. So those kind of changes you can just make. Okay.
Right.
Any other questions on the 93-page document for Title IV? And Title IV being done, let's go to Title VI, AC. 49 pages of Title VI. Any questions on Title VI? There weren't a lot of markups, just changes from manager to superintendent and things like that, if I recall right.
The big thing probably in that section or in that title is the connection fees and the water rate charts, where we kind of streamline the process on that, where council just sets for example, the connection fees. There's a schedule that indicates how many equivalent residential connections each type of property would have, whether it's a single family, duplex, or what type of business. And then council can set that equivalent residential connection, which currently for in town it's 4,000, out of town it's 4,500 for water and sewer for each. And so the council, that way we don't have to go through and change all these charts and redo the entire ordinance book each time. Those sections of the ordinance book, council can just change what the value of the equivalent residential connection is, and then it translates automatically through the calculation of the schedules.
Correct. So we set the base rate, and this automatically does all the adjustments for us.
Exactly.
I know there's one time we go through and try to change them all, so this does make it much easier. But we've been doing that. It just clarifies it too.
Right.
Any questions on Title VI? Okay, well, thanks for spending a lot of time reading through these. AC, again, thanks your whole team and Quentin and everyone's team for getting this in writing and in the system, and a big step forward. So let's go ahead and open it up for public comment, AC. If anyone calls in with some questions, and then we will see if we want to make a motion and approve this.
All right, we're probably good on that. But and just to give a couple more seconds, these were all posted online to, and hold on a second, we may have a phone call coming in, but while we're writing, we did have these posted for review. They were posted online. So everybody had access to them. I didn't receive any emails. No phone calls to the office requesting copies of them or to review them that I know of. And let's see, Cecilia, is that a call for us?
Yes, this is Paula Bowman.
Okay, and I don't know if you can, if there's a way to patch it through so we can hear her.
Yeah, let me put you on speakerphone and see if you can hear it that way. All right, Paula, you're on speakerphone.
I'm here.
Can you hear her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, you can go ahead, Paula.
I was just saying that with Title IV, you're changing it and taking peddlers off. So make sure you take it off of the front, with the top line too.
Okay, definitely note, we'll note that, and that's a good point. I'll take that. I'll make sure that that correction is made.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely do that. Thank you, Paula. Is there any other things you noticed, Paula?
You don't need to. I'm just saying that you're going to change Title IV to delete the peddler altogether.
Correct.
It's just right before the 500. Okay.
Right. Yep.
No, I haven't seen it before, so it went through too fast. They're repeating my comment.
Okay.
Cecilia, can you ask her if she's good, if that's everything that she needed?
Hey, Paula, is that everything you needed? All right. You're welcome. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Cecilia.
Bye-bye.
And we don't have any, I don't see any more calls coming through, Mr. Mayor. They had, let's say, adequate time. So
I'm glad Paula called in because we got to test it also to see.
yeah, exactly.
If it actually works, and it worked out well. Okay, we'll close public comment. And now's the time to approve the ordinance books as presented. And it's Title 1, make sure I get it right, AC, 1, 3, 4, and 6.
That's correct.
Of the ordinances. So we need a motion to do so.
I'll move that we approve that.
Okay, Ned approved. Ned makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Natalie, thank you. Okay, move down the list. Oh, any further discussion? Okay, Carl.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Natalie.
Yes.
Ned.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
And Juanita. Yes. Okay, Juanita, thank you. AC, what are we at here? The last one is some discussion with AC about the CARES Act funding discussion. As everyone's aware, you see it on our financial report. We received from the county approximately $130-some thousand, I think it was, from the CARES Act, and it's to be used to things to COVID-related items, PPE and that kind of items and things like that, help small businesses and so forth. So I'll turn this over to you, AC. You can go through what suggestions you may have, and then council can talk and say, we'll just go through all of them, I guess, and decide we agree, don't disagree, think it's a good idea, and what to go from there.
So, as the mayor said, we received almost $140,000 from CARES funding, and whatever the town doesn't use gets sent back, and I'm sure it will be used somewhere else if we don't use it somewhere else in the country, since it is federal funding. And had our town crews go through, brainstorm, and we came up with this list and put it together, and with the thought of there are a couple things that we would probably say that we're really behind strongly. The others that we think are good uses for the money, and we'll ask council to go through and indicate which ones they would approve of and which ones they wouldn't approve of. And I think in the memo I sent out, mentioned that And some of these are projects, we're not even sure if we can actually get some of these projects done in the time frame because the funds have to be spent by the end of this calendar year. So by the end of December. I know certain things we can get done, certain things. It's good pushing it, but I would ask for council approval on them just so that if we can get them in, we already have the approval to do those. So council received a list of those proposed projects, and some of the things like the personal protective equipment, which is a continuing expense, that has increased a little bit from more recent expenditures or more recent purchases of that type of equipment. So what I'm going to do, what I would ask is just, we can go through and council can ask questions and tell us what they would and wouldn't approve of.
Okay, so why don't you start from the top and work down and open each one up for questions or comments, and we'll go from there. And then
okay. So the front office protective barriers, that one's actually already completed. That was really not a whole lot of choice on that one. Everybody, I think almost all the localities across the Commonwealth and probably across the country have gone through these types of improvements. Ours were pretty minimal cost for the amount of improvements that were made with the enclosing the foyer or creating a foyer area in the front office so that it gives us some protective barrier to our front office employees. With the sliding windows, we can kind of minimize the exposure contact with that once the town office actually opens back up to in-person transactions. The telework setup, that was already completed. That was where we ended up paying for the technical side of things, so that when we were on the office rotation, when the pandemic first occurred, we didn't have Melinda, Michelle, and Cecilia. There was only one of them were in the office at a time on a work day, and the other two were working remotely. So that was the cost for the setup to get them set up to work remotely. Again, the PPE, personal protective equipment that you can see there is it's already been spent and then is a continuing expenditure. Those are typically your masks, your hand sanitizers, gloves, things like that. So, not huge expenses. It's just more of a smaller accruing increments.
So you see, on the first three, does anyone have any questions on those three? Those ones seem fairly simple for the fact that it's already been spent and any other questions on 1 through 3? Okay, go ahead, AC.
Okay. Number 4 is one of the ones that we would be stronger. I would be strongly behind as the employee pay. It would kind of follow suit with all of the other localities also. A big majority of the other localities have either done this or are proposing to do this type of action, which is a bonus of employee pay. If you really want to, you can actually call it hazard pay, but it does show because of the increased risk that our employees experience in their job duties. Obviously, the police department probably has the highest level of risk because they have much more face-to-face interaction with individuals outside of a controlled environment. And so that's why we had set those bonuses for them at the rate we did. Public Works employees, not quite as exposed as the police department employees, but still some exposure as they go out, meter reading or working on water lines out in the general public. Just their different duties. They have such a varied list of tasks that they perform on a regular basis. And then we did a lesser amount for the administrative employees in the front office. Their contact level was less, but they still do end up out at the bank or being forced to meet with somebody for whatever reason it might be. So that was what we came up with for those employee pay bonuses. Those are one time that we're recommending.
Yeah, one thing that kind of surprised me was when it started, I don't know if it's still going, that our front office was basically sanitizing the checks and so forth prior to taking them to the bank. I guess, Melinda, that still goes on?
Yes, we sanitize everything.
So even before we take it to the bank, they sanitize everything they take prior to interaction with the bank.
We spray down the checks, the cash, everything.
Yeah, so, okay. Anyone have any questions as far as hazardous duty pay for employees? I know even businesses were doing this, front end businesses and so forth. I know the county was doing it too with their front end employees. Anyone have any questions for AC on that part?
I guess my question would be, and maybe this is an overall discussion of the CARES Act funding. If you look at the CARES Act, it says requires that payments from the Coronavirus Relief Fund only be used to cover expenses that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency. Were not accounted for in our budget that we've already passed. And then the third item were incurred during the period March 1st through December 30th of 2020. And then also looking at this, I believe AC or Melinda could add color to this. We, as a town, should have received from Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Accounts, where we were required to sign a certification. Do you remember receiving that?
Right, that went through that certification that states that we received the funds.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. We did receive that.
And then that certification that we were required to sign, it again goes over the same three items that are included, I guess, in the federal side. They're necessary expenditures not accounted for in the budget or incurred during the period that begins. So those three, spirit and intent of the funding that was received. And then, as you said before, any funds that are not expended prior to December 30th would need to be returned. And I read that full certification letter, and it says as a condition of receiving CRF funds pursuant to the certification, the locality shall retain documentation of all uses of the funds, including but not limited to payroll time, records, invoices, and or sales receipts. Such documentation shall be produced to the Commonwealth upon request. And then number 9 in that certification letter says the locality must maintain proper accounting records to segregate these expenditures from those supported by other fund sources, and that all such records will be subject to audit. So when I read that and look at the intent of this relief, I'm questioning how we could come up with a dollar amount for employee pay when, to me, it seems it's based on necessary expenditures and not necessarily just a bonus.
I see what you're saying.
Because it's going to be, it appears that it's subject to audit, and that if expense were paid that doesn't qualify, we would be required to return the funds. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So I understand that the employees, have had to go above and beyond, but to say it's a dollar amount as a bonus without having, records to show that, I guess I do have that concern that subject to an audit, it would be not easy to justify just a flat dollar amount.
Okay.
I guess the question we could have with, we know the county went through and did the equivalent thing. Is that correct, AC?
That's correct.
And they, and I think the other towns are doing the same thing. But they're somehow justifying it in that way. I can't say.
And I understand that point that, you know, it's, some of this is gray. I understand it's not always black and white.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this clearly is gray. There's no two ways about this. It's very gray.
And you know, I wanted to bring that up as an overview, not to point out just at number 4, but that to me is where I think it starts. I think the first 3 items certainly meet the letter and intent.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these others do. It's just the level. How can we produce the records that justify that amount? You know, we are to take the information that we are, you know, given, do the research, and then obviously offer our opinion. So I just want us to be aware that these funds that we have received, whatever we expend, will be subject, can be subject to a further audit. Because unfortunately, I think what we'll see across the country, that there are, and if you do some research, you'll see that there are already items that have been spent across the states that there's a number of red flags that are coming up. And I think the town has been prudent with with its finances for many years. And if these are truly legitimate needs for the town, we can either through a budget amendment or in the upcoming budget plan for some of these to be spent from town funds and not necessarily run the risk of using money that from the CARES Act that do not meet the spirit and intent of that. And I'll just point out one. I know we're going to go through them individually, but number 9, I don't see how in any way we can justify that as being necessary expenditure due to public health emergency.
Yeah, I see some of them. I mean, there's some I have a question with too, Bob, on some of them.
Just so you know, if you Google if you can use CARES funding for hazard pay, it is allowable at 100% refundable or reimbursable.
But the question is, how do we account for that? We're saying it's just a flat fee. It says in number 8 of the certification letter that the town was asked to sign, it says, including but not limited to payroll time records, invoices, and/or sales receipts. Such documentation shall be produced to the Commonwealth of Virginia upon request.
Well, that document would be, the payroll would be the showing that they received the hazardous duty pay that we would give them, correct?
Yeah, it says
Right.
individual timesheets for employees for each qualifying pay period are not required as documentation.
Well, I'm reading the certification letter that the town was required to sign.
And I'll say that was the hardest thing when this came out, was that it explicitly stated in one of the many reams of paperwork that went along with it that there is no, you can't call the federal government. There is no hotline to call to confirm whether your project qualifies or not. It was left up to each locality to determine the validity and of each project or each expenditure, and to determine whether it fell within the guidelines of the CARES Act.
But it should also be noted that those are subject to audit.
Right, that's correct.
Oh, yeah, I think anything we approve, we need to open, we're gonna be open and honest. We've got a separate account made and we'll let them know exactly what we spend it on. And if there's some disagreement, we'll have to refund it. I think that's, we need to go into our eyes open, knowing that if, someone comes back and says that's not a justifiable expense, then we pay it back. And that's just the way it will be.
I don't want to jump in uninvited, but I've definitely helped several companies with this kind of thing. It's different on the private side than it is in the public sector. But I think having this type of chart is a good idea. If we can add a column with justification under the CARES Act, which section we're referencing, that may help, at least when it comes to an audit where we were getting the guidance. I think there's, I haven't been involved in this at all yet, and it may be something that would be worth me spending a little bit of time with AC on to see if we can get some code provisions to justify some of these expenses.
Okay, that sounds good. So yeah, and that'll help clarify some of the concerns that Bob has. I mean, some of them when we get down to, we'll talk about. I agree with Bob. There's no use spending money just to be spending the money, on certain things. But if it truly has to do with an impact to the town because of this situation we're now in, because of Virginia's mandate and the federal government's push, then it's something we need to see if we can recoup. Okay, so employee pay, that's something you can look into, Quentin. Okay. Equipment to stream meetings, AC, and that's basically, you and I talked a little bit about that. It's providing counsel and people equipment that works, number one. And then there's some question of, if I'm using my personal computer, what is my personal computer? Should I be using my personal computer for town work? And the only reason I'm using it is because of this.
Yeah. And that's one of the parts of FOIA training too, or parts of FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, is that council members who use their personal computers to answer emails or whatever, they can be that information can be requested, and you have to turn it over if it's on your personal computer. The primary reason for this is to, we don't know how long the restrictions are going to be in place because of the pandemic. And even after the pandemic may seem to subside and we get back to in-person meetings, there's going to be a certain portion of the population who doesn't feel comfortable being in a group setting with a bunch of strangers, not knowing others' health habits. And this, the purchase of this equipment would allow us to better stream the meetings. Yeah, if everybody remembers, this actually works pretty nice as far as being able to watch it online. If you think back to when we were in person and had started streaming the meetings, it was pretty rudimentary and very basic and not very professional looking the way we were doing it. It served the purpose, it got the information out there for people who couldn't attend, or in coming cases who wouldn't feel comfortable attending the in-person meetings. And it gives us a level of transparency and a level of citizen involvement that might not otherwise happen with the current conditions.
Any questions on number 5?
So number 5, if you give me an iPad with all of the bells and whistles or a bare bones HP, it does me no good unless I have internet service. And really, I think we have found that unless you have high speed, it's connecting electronically is difficult at best.
Well,
so I personally, I would not ask the town to provide me a laptop. But again, that's, each of us have a vote tonight. But again, the device is one thing, but are we also going to pay them for their internet service? Because
Well,
without internet service, that device is useless.
right. And what we're looking at here is that this gives us another opportunity to get back to in-person meetings and be able to get the information out to the council's constituents, because these devices would be used in the in-person meetings in the council room. And Cecilia would be able to have equipment to control and switch everything so that it goes out in a more seamless manner with a better quality of broadcast once we're back in those in-person meetings.
Does the town currently have a computer usage policy?
Yes, it's in the personnel policy manual.
And I assume that, and again, I don't know if we're going to vote on these individually or as a whole, but I assume these are the property of the town and would be returned upon, leaving office.
Absolutely.
I think when it's over and done, we need to go through each individual. And then again, it'll also be that we need to have Quentin look at the items that we say are possibilities and give us a thumbs up or thumbs down if it's legally meets the criteria for the CARES Act. Correct, AC?
That's right.
Okay.
I personally, Don,
Yes, sir.
I personally, about the computers, I do not prefer to use my tax money nor anyone else's tax money to buy me a computer.
Okay, we'll go down through the list and everyone's say yay or nay, and we'll see where we get. Again, these are just items. Now, I do like when AC, if it's something we can do internally in the office that allows them to get out to more people, that's a different thing too, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know what that entails. But the FOIA thing, we'll have to talk about that a little bit too, because we all need to understand FOIA and how our personal computer falls into that, but that's a different subject somewhere along the line.
Well, you'll learn that soon when you get your FOIA training done by the end of the year. So
I definitely will.
Well, I think it should have always been clear that any email that we send is, if it's addressed to the town, anyone within the town, it's subject to FOIA.
Oh, I understand that. But I have an issue turning over my personal computer or anything for that.
I don't know if it would be necessary for you to turn your computer over. If you're mailing into the town server would house that email.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's at that liberty person part of me that's is protective of that sort of thing. Okay, let's talk about the fire department grant. I do know the fire department was hit pretty hard when they cannot do any fundraising and so forth. I know the county stepped in with their CARES Act and helped them to some degree. I'm assuming, and again, we don't know how long it's going to go till they can really go back to doing lawn parties and fundraising and so forth. So I'm assuming that's what that's for, AC?
So that is looking at lost revenue that they would have experienced from their fundraising efforts. And it's the dollar amount is a placeholder. That's not a hard and fast thing, but it's, we're looking at the amount of equipment that they need to purchase to perform their job duties with the current setting in the current world, with trying to attend to injured individuals and having to have all the personal protective equipment. They're extremely hands-on, high contact individuals.
Okay. Any questions on the fire department portion of it? Okay, let's move down to 7, touchless bathroom fixtures. I know everyone's putting this stuff in nowadays.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the front office are very big on disinfection, and it's not just of things coming into the office. We all wear masks when we move throughout the office. Everything gets sprayed down, thorough cleanings, and everybody's been very diligent about that. And I just feel that, you have a tendency to forget sometimes. If you have touchless fixtures, that's it just removes one more level of the hazard.
Okay. Let's keep going down. Positive drive. This is the one that I'm not really excited about, AC. And I don't quite understand it. It's basically a delivery system for your bills.
So we still have, we have a method for individuals to drop off their payments currently. This is what you would see at a bank drive-through, where instead of people having to get out and come up to the door, they could actually we would have it set up where they could drive. It would be a true drive-through, pull it in their vehicle and put it in the box, send it in, get the transaction taken care of immediately. It eliminates a lot of what might be unnecessary traffic in the office, even once things go back to normal.
Yeah, and I think first of all, the thing that I have an issue with, and maybe it's the world we live in now, is we've kind of went from being such a personal office to you guys are behind a glass and it's you know what I'm saying, you're sealed in your little room, and it seems to take the personalness, if that's a word, out of it, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? It's just people enjoy coming to town, talking to the front office and interacting with them, and now we're more and more, because of this virus, we're pushing citizens away from the enjoyment of talking to the front staff, if that makes sense. And I just don't like it for that reason. Maybe it's the world we live in today. I don't know. But, I think some people just.
I guess my question, I'm sorry, Don.
Go ahead.
With the logistics of getting out of the town lot anyway, I wonder how you would even position I assume it's a tube system, pneumatic tube system.
It's not pneumatic tube. It's more of the track drive like Farmers and Merchants uses now. Yeah, same principle.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult enough just to park and to get in and out. To encourage driving through there is, and again, I don't think that this is an item that falls within the intent. It's not necessary, and it's certainly not. Once COVID's over, it really is unnecessary.
Right.
So no, this is not one I could support either.
I would love to go. I still think we can go back to normal. And maybe I'm just a wishful thinker, but I want to go back to normal sooner or later. Okay, any other questions on that? We'll move on to 9, the column removal. I agree with Bob on that. That's a neat thing, but is it really necessary?
Okay.
I know we worked hard, AC, and nothing against the staff working all these. It's just.
Like I said at the beginning, I'm presenting this to council to go through kind of a menu.
I think, AC, if you looked at our year-to-date numbers, we have not suffered a great deal financially. Where we have lost in some, we probably have gained in others. Again, I think it goes back to the town being prudent with its finances and always has been. And we're sort of not subject to any one large source of income. We have a broad base, and I just don't like the idea that we will spend this money just because it's available to us.
Understood. Yeah, AC and I have had the same conversation. The next one is a possibility of updating our message board on the front of the building. Basically, a lot, like Bob said, a lot of people don't have internet. A lot of people don't have communication ways, and it could be a way to communicate to the folks who are locked in or just not getting out of their car or whatever. So that's just an idea that was brought up of possibly doing something like that. What's anyone think about that? I'm sorry, AC, I'm taking over your.
No, you're fine. Hey, that's fine.
And it would be something similar to the fire department has, where they, wear your mask, that sort of thing, or Broadway High School has, and different way of communicating along with Facebook, website, getting the message out to people about what's going on. People are shut in, and all they do is go to their car, go to a drive-in, pick up something outside a Walmart delivery, and go back. That kind of thing. Any questions on that?
Would that be something like a much bigger sign than what's there now?
Yeah.
It'd be something digital. Yeah, it'd have to be bigger than that. Yeah.
It's bigger than the existing sign. It would be bigger than the existing sign, and it would also give the functionality of being able to change, put more than, more messages on there than what currently we put a message on there, and that's the static message for until we change the sign again by physically going out and typically Cecilia, I believe, does it and goes out and moves the letters to put a new message up. So this would be something that you could program to run multiple different messages that would scroll or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds good, but bigger, would it interfere with view of traffic and things like that?
Well, it would be repositioned. It wouldn't be placed at the same spot. It would we would have a better location for it because it's not a very good, it's just not an optimal location where the current sign is.
I think we'd have to fall under all our sign ordinances anyway, right, AC?
Right, exactly.
The height and width and all that stuff of our monument signs. So it'd have to fall, we'd fall into our own ordinances we set.
Right.
Back when Walmart came. And then the last one is business grants. I know a lot of municipalities, I don't know how this is given, but it's given to businesses. I know some would help with advertisements, some helped with just the pain they were feeling from the crisis and things like that. I don't know how you distribute it, AC, but.
Well, and there would be an application process. I believe it was Dayton that sent me theirs, or maybe right. One of them had sent me a copy of their application, and it gave the specifications, and it was very similar to what Rockingham County had done on, it had to be a business with less than 50 employees, all of those different types of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do they have to show? Do they have to show that
they would have to produce? I think with the one that I had the example of, they would have to produce documentation of where their loss was because of the pandemic.
Right, right. I mean, me personally, on some of the ones we have in question, I would rather expand the business grant and help the local businesses with more if we could, instead of doing some of the other stuff. I'd rather see the 12,000 for the column, put down and expand the business grant to help more businesses out if that's doable. And again, Quentin would have to verify that kind of thing if the council chooses it fits the criteria. But I'd like to see some of this. I'd like to see that expanded to help our local businesses even more if so choose. Because I think that one, I would hope that falls into, because you had the PPE loans and all that stuff that basically paid salaries for people to work even though they couldn't work, and all that is forgivable loans. It seems like it falls straight into that PPE loan format, I would think. So this one would be one of the easier ones, I would hope. So I guess.
So my comment on that, Don, the town can, when we signed the certification, it says pursuant to this certification, cannot be used as a revenue replacement for lower than expected revenues, collections from taxes, fees, and other revenue sources. So if we cannot justify because our revenue is lower, how can we then say, well, this business qualifies because your revenue was lower? I'm not certainly anti-business, never have been.
Well, you said yourself, some areas we were hit worse and some areas we did better. So the ones we were hit worse, I would think they'd be able to justify why they did worse. Does that make sense? I mean, some people, I'm guessing there's some small business in town who weren't able to pay their employees or did pay their employees without any real revenue coming in. I think they'd have to justify it. I don't think it's up to us to say how they justify it, but I guess I said that wrong. They would have to go through that process to show how they're impacted. Some of the ones who we know have done better, we know they've done better. And them coming in and saying I've done worse is not correct. Because I guess you have to produce something showing, here's what I did in last year at this time, and on the impact of COVID, I've done 20% less or something like that. I guess.
Mayor, can I say something about that?
Yes, sir.
It's kind of out of my bailiwick, but my logic with that would be that the government can't take that money to replace what losses it may have, because we're pretty much guaranteed that next year there's still going to be a government here.
Right.
However, if you have, mom and dad's store and it's hit, the problem is it may not be here next year if it can't pay its employees or it can't pay its utilities or rent. So I would think that would be the logic of why we can't use it to replace income that we lost, because we can go get low interest loans and so on and so forth to carry on as a government.
Oh yeah, we can't. I agree with you. And what Bob said, we can't. If we were 50,000 less in, I don't know, meals tax, we can't take 50,000 to make our meals tax, because that's not what this is intended for. Or if we had a hotel and the hotel does no business, we can't keep this to make up that hotel tax or whatever kind of thing. But I'm sure there are some businesses, there's mom and pop businesses that may or may not be around because a couple $1,000s may make a difference. And I think if we can help, but again, we have to go through every one of these. Some of them will say yes to, someone will say no. And then the ones we say yes to, Quentin will have to go through and look at them individually and say, this is justifiable by the CARES Act. Does that sound right to everybody? I knew this one would take longer.
With the understanding that the monies has to be spent by December 30th.
Exactly. So Quentin's going to have to get on it very quickly, and AC will have to get on it very quickly too. You're right. Exactly. That is the understanding. And if it doesn't get spent, then the money goes directly back. And we write them a check for $50,000, whatever we weren't able to do. Again, I agree. You don't spend money just to spend money. You spend money to help in a way that falls into the CARES Act.
I don't see any money spent on the PD other than employee bonuses. Isn't there any equipment or supplies that would, relate to COVID?
It's all PPE and stuff like that, but I think that's about it, isn't it, Chief?
Yes, sir. Yeah. As far as the PPE, we have a pretty good supply of masks. We got kind of an early jump start on that from some donations, and we've been able to supplement that through purchases at Walmart and other places that have been rolled into what Austin's ready for personal protective equipment for the whole town. Ours is rolled into that. Otherwise, there was originally a lot of concern about surface contact. There still is some. But we're taking care of that as far as in vehicles, that kind of thing, with having disinfectant wipes. So at this point, it doesn't look like it's the kind of thing where we need to deal with the way the car is laid out or anything like that. There would be a major cost. We're able to deal with it with just sanitation and personal protective equipment.
Okay.
Fortunately.
Did you say that the county donated some money to the local fire department?
Yes, that's correct.
How much?
I believe it was 30,000, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if I heard. If I ever heard, I've forgotten.
Okay, have they given an estimate on how much money they may have lost, because of this?
I'd have to check with Chris and find out what the exact number would be.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd be interested.
But that would make sense. We're going to make up what they have lost.
Right.
So if they've lost $18,000, and that gives us a target versus whatever. Okay.
Or if they've lost 50,000.
Right. Yeah. Ned, did you have a question? I saw you raise your hand.
I did. Something that's not on this list is legal fees that have been incurred directly related to the pandemic, and you've obligated us some more fees tonight when you've directed Quentin to look at this and look at that related to this. So I think we need to put that on this list.
Well, that is directly related. You're right.
Yes,
that is a good one. As in that's a good one, Ned. I like that. That's an easily justifiable one. I think, Quentin, I'm not speaking for you, but
No, I think that's a great idea from Ned. And we can go back to, April and May when we were putting together the ordinances and how we were going to shift and all of that legal time that was directly related to this. So, yeah,
Up through
for
the
sure.
end of the year. So you've been directed to do things tonight that'll carry you through the end of the year.
Sure.
that's a great idea, Ned. Great idea. So I guess the best way of doing this, we need to go item to item and see if anyone's in favor of doing that item or not. So I guess I'll assume you're yes unless you say no. How about that? If no one says anything on line item, I'm assuming you're good with it. If you don't like an item, speak up. Does that seem to work? Okay, line item 1. Does anyone disagree with line item 1?
I don't have that in front of me. Can you say what line item?
Line item 1 is the front office protective barrier, where we put up the vestibule and the basically the shielding. Like people put up plexiglass, we put up the wall. Okay. If no one makes a comment, or I take it no more than 3 make a comment, we'll pass this on to Quentin. Telework setup. You've already expended that $496. You're carrying $600 for more, perhaps $100 more. Anyone have a question on the telework setup? And was able in the front office and so forth to work from home as needed. Any questions on that? Okay. PPE. I think we've talked about this enough. We spent about $1,500. We're anticipating as much as $1,000 more by the end of the year. As AC says,
it'll actually probably be a little bit more than that,
okay.
Because Melinda had some more expenditures for PPE on the recent bills. So
I guess really the amount on certain items don't matter as much as others, because this one's definitely a justifiable item no matter which way you look at it. So
exactly.
I'd say just the fact of buying PPE, that should be very justifiable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll add one on here, a small one while we're talking. Does anyone have any issue with the attorney expenses or legal expenses associated with COVID-related items? Anyone have any issue with that? And again, I don't know what the expense is, because Quentin will have to see what was expended, and Melinda can help with that too. Anyone have any issues with that one? Okay. Employee pay PPE. Now, this is, Quentin's gonna have to go back and see how this is, how people work this in, because everyone seems to be doing it that way. Does anyone have an issue with the hazardous duty prorated, as in, per contact, police department highest, field workers middle, and admin on the lower end? Anyone have any issue with hazardous duty pay for employees? Any issues? And again, all these, Quentin will have to make sure we're good. Equipment to stream meetings. Through our discussion,
I'm a no to number 5. This is Bob.
Bob's a no to number 5. Anyone else a no to number 5? Sharon, I can't tell. You guys saw you say something.
Oh, I'm a no.
Okay.
No.
Anyone else a no to number 5?
Explain number 5 thoroughly again.
Yeah, I heard a few different things. I mean, if it's I don't know. I heard a few different things. Go ahead, AC.
But basically, it would be purchasing a device, whether it's a small laptop or a tablet, for each council member position that we could use for these types of meetings, the Zoom meetings. And then also, once we get back in person, they will continue to be used for the streaming purposes of the in-person meetings.
I'm no on that.
Any other no's? So that leaves that one up to me, doesn't it?
If we were voting on it.
If we're voting, we're kind of voting on each line item, see if we carry it through. I'm going to say no on that one, AC. Now, I would say yes on something if it needs to be improved in the front office, you know what I'm saying, to help the streamline itself. But I personally don't need an iPad in the chambers. But if there's things you can do in the chambers to make us ability to stream the meetings better.
Well, that's what this would do.
But I don't understand the pads themselves then.
So basically, everybody would have their device sitting in front of them, just like we do here.
Yeah.
Cecilia would act as the director of this, or she would be able to switch the camera each device to whichever person had the floor. And so it's kind of like all of us being in the room with this type of setup.
We could also, sorry to interrupt, we could also set it up so we all have our email address and all of our things are emailed to us on that laptop. So as we're sitting there, we have no need for the police department to bring us packets. We have no need for paper to be constantly printed out. Just environmentally, it makes more sense to go electronic. Not to mention, if we could set up a personal email address with a town of Timberville address, it gives accessibility to the citizens to email each individual council member and makes us more responsible to the citizens of the town.
But is that something that should be more in our budget, or is that more into the COVID related incident?
Right now, considering the chances of running into one of us and having a conversation like you normally would is greatly decreased because of COVID. So the ability to get in touch with us easier because of the barriers, I think would be wise.
Dang, I just don't know.
I feel that anyone that wants to talk to me, they have my phone number is published. You know, they can email my private computer, but I am a total no on that.
I would be the opposite based on some things. I would never be giving out my personal information, and I would prefer a town address that I would be emailed at. Not, first of all, for Freedom of Information Act, it's really more proper to have that. Second of all, my personal email is my personal email, and it will remain so.
Well, I haven't heard, now I'm thinking about it, I haven't heard from Juanita. Juanita, are you thumbs up or thumbs down on this since your volume isn't there? Show me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Oh, she's a thumbs down. So that takes care of it, period. Okay. Sorry, Juanita. I was waiting to hear something and you got that thing's on mute. Okay, so I guess I'm off the hook on this one because 4 said no. But again, I think we need to consider if it's town funds, I just don't see it fall under this right now, but that's my personal opinion. Okay, fire department grant. Any question on the fire department grant?
I'd like to get an estimate from Chris on what he feels the department's losing.
What his shortfall is?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on that? I mean, the CARES Act is not intended for people to make money, but it's to make up the differences. And he should also look going forward. If he's not going to be able to, you know, he may be a little short now, but I'm not going to do this by December or January or something.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. No questions on, you got that, AC?
Okay. Is that the consensus of the council, or?
Anybody?
To follow the intent of the CARES Act, it's necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency. Obviously, canceling a lawn party falls within that, but to purchase equipment, that's another item.
Yeah. Well, I guess it kind of ties together kind of too, because they do the lawn party to purchase equipment, but we need to find out what their income is short so we can make up what they're short. Does that make sense? And what they use for it is what they use for it. Now, if they were buying $10,000 worth of special equipment just for COVID, if there is such a thing, then that would be something different too. That would have been unexpected expense.
And I just want to interject really quick. The fire department and any other nonprofit organizations would have access through the business grants that you're going to set up, they'd be able to apply the same way. At least that's how other localities have been doing it.
Okay. Well, we could do then. Okay. Well, I guess find out through Chris, and either way, it could go through the grant or it could go through this way. So find out what their shortfall is, AC.
Okay.
Touchless fixtures in the bathrooms. Anybody have an issue with that?
No, these are items that AC has the ability and authority to purchase regardless of COVID.
Yeah, I know, but it's being used through the COVID funds.
But once COVID's gone, they'll still be there. So
yeah, they will.
So no.
Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay. The positive drive delivery system. Who says no on that one?
No.
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 Oh, there you go, Juanita. Okay, so move on from that one. Council room, that basically reorganizing the council so it's more open for an open setting. Anyone who says no on that?
No. Bob?
How's that COVID related?
It was just so you can have 6 foot apart, I'm assuming, but you know, you already heard my feeling on that one.
No.
Sharon?
No.
Juanita?
No.
Any other no's? Okay. The message board.
Bob? No.
Okay, we're good there. Business grants. I'd assume, okay, business grants. And Quentin apparently knows how this is done, so he'll be able to walk us through it and he can help AC with the form and you looking at the other ones. What about business grants? And again, that I'm assuming the reason is we need to find businesses who have been impacted in a negative way from this event and see if we can help them out through the CARES Act. Anything on the business grants? Okay. Now I would assume AC, whatever this works out to be when it's done, I'd like it be, if we have more businesses hurt than we're anticipating with this 20,000 was originally here and it's more 30 or 40, then this allows us to move this funds to more business grants to help more small businesses.
Right.
And I think that's a great thing. So whenever we work, after you talk to Chris and Quentin does his comparison, get something out to us quickly, and we'll know what's left for the business grants, and we can just start helping our neighbors and small businesses as much as possible. Does that make sense? And again, some of this stuff, I think when we went through it, I think we came up with a decent list that, I think falls into what the CARE Act's meant to be, I think.
So, Quentin, yes. Correct me here. We should probably get a motion to proceed with these certain ones that have been, the consensus is agreed to.
Yeah, I think so. Then it's clear the intent of the council as we go forward. So
then the ones we've talked about, and I'll see if I can remember, is the protective barriers, the telework setup's already done, PPE that's already set up, reimbursement for legal expenses associated with COVID, employee hazard duty pay, fire department grant making up what their loss is, touchless bathroom fixtures, message board, and the rest going towards small business grants. Does that seem to work out?
That's correct.
Did I get it all? I put that up. I put that number 4.
Okay.
Yep. Legal expense associated with COVID. So that's where we're at. I need a motion saying so. And again, we don't know dollar amounts to everything yet because, if we prove whatever Quentin finds out will help dictate the dollar amounts we have and so forth. But as soon as him and AC get together, he can get something out to us very quickly, I'm assuming. that we can get a note to the council saying what pots are available, and then we'll go from there. Because we may never know from the business grant. We may put 50,000 for business grant, and you only have 5,000 people, $5,000 worth apply, or may have 55,000 apply. I don't know.
Right.
You know, like Bob mentioned earlier, some did well, some haven't done so well. Okay, so we need a motion.
A motion to approve the ones that we approved.
Yes, sir. The ones that the ones we give a thumbs up to, yes.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
AC, would you provide a what you've received that would relate to business grants, like criteria that others are using?
Sure.
And
yeah,
I think I've
can
read
email
that.
out.
I think I've read that each grant has a limit.
I think that's
Dollar
typically how most of them have been doing it. Yeah, and different
You could
localities have
provide
had
that
different.
criteria.
Yeah, I will email that out after the meeting of the ones that I have in hand. Yeah.
But are you going to compile one that the town will use?
Yeah, based on ours will be tailored to Timberville based off of the ones that we have examples of.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm assuming that'll be a collaborative effort between you and Quentin.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a motion from Carl, a second from Sharon, if I remember right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I can't do it that way. I think I'm in the chamber. Okay, Carl.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Natalie.
Yes.
Ned.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yeah.
And Juanita.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, where are we at? So we made it through that. And now we're at I guess we're at the end, AC. You have anything to bring up right now?
Nothing else that I can think of.
Okay, if you guys, I'll bring up one thing. I don't know if you saw Cecilia's post on the memorial. The field workers are hard at work working on that memorial right now, and we want to thank Superior Concrete for a donation of the concrete. And we want to recognize Creative Concrete for their hard work. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. It is flat out amazing what they've done with it. So right over there, if you get a chance and check it out. I know Ned's seen it already. I don't know if he's seen the finished job or not, but and we can't the flags are in to be put up for memorial. The benches are there for memorial. We just have to wait for the stuff to cure. And so it'll be probably an end of year project by the time the concrete cures, but check it out if you can. And Cecilia, thank you for putting it on Facebook and keeping everybody updated on that. Any council have any other items to talk about right now? Okay, well, thank you all. And it was a long meeting, but a very productive meeting. Have a good evening, guys.